let's take a look at messaging, because this is an area where both phones, I think, really have strong and weak points. We'll start with the iPhone. For me, the strong points of the iPhone when it comes to messaging are it has threaded text messaging, it has full HTML email, and it is a really visually pleasing interface. So with the iPhone's keyboard, one of the big things it has going for it is the predictive text system. You make a lot of typos, or at least I do, and most people I know who have the iPhone or have used it do make a lot of typos because the keys are pretty crammed together. But the predictive text system is very smart, very well implemented, and unless you're using a lot of shorthand or made-up words or nicknames or stuff, it auto-corrects a lot of what you're trying to do. The big negative for me is that there's no landscape mode. Again, there are third-party apps and hacks and stuff available, but without jumping through hoops, just straight out of the box, there's no landscape keyboard, and to me this is inexcusable. I don't get why Apple just hasn't implemented the widescreen keyboard for email and messaging at this point. Because on the web browser, oops, you have to rotate it first. On the web browser, you can go widescreen. And whatever your opinion is, if you're watching this and you're like, dude, I have an iPhone and I have no problems typing, the point is making the phone as good as possible for everybody who's going to use it. And for my money, the widescreen keyboard is just easier to use. There's just more room. It suits me better. I still can't type with it, but and again, whether whichever one you prefer, I don't understand why, if they have the technology and it works in the web browsing mode, they won't just implement it for text messaging and for email. The other negative on the iPhone when it comes to messaging is that multimedia messaging, MMS, picture messaging, is still not supported officially. And again, I just don't get it. It just doesn't make any sense. People use text messaging. I'm sure there's business reasons, getting people to use data, et cetera, but whatever, I don't care. They should have it. With the BlackBerry, aside from that, let me just mention, email support is good. The whole Apple Mobile Me thing has kind of been a semi-failure, maybe full-on failure to this point. But for general email use, it works well. Now it has Exchange support. Setting up an email account, Gmail or Yahoo or whatever, is very easy. Most AT&T non-smartphones don't have Gmail support. The iPhone, I guess, is technically a smartphone, but anyway, it does have Gmail support. So email, generally works well on the iPhone. It's just the actual message composition. And a similar story on the Storm. BlackBerry's mobile email support is legendary. It's excellent. The push email is great. Generally speaking, it's reliable and solid as much as any system out there. The thing for me about this phone, and I think it's really a polarizing thing, is that it's a BlackBerry, so you think messaging, but the actual keyboard, the actual message composition, is definitely an area of some, we'll say controversy or what have you. And for me, when I first took the Storm out of the box and started typing on it, I thought, wow, I think I kind of like this. The more I've used it, the less I like it. And the deal is that you've got 3 keyboards available to you. In portrait mode, in vertical mode, you have the short type system, or you can have a standard multi-tap keyboard. And the short type uses predictive text, and it has 2 letters on most of the buttons. And so basically, you're typing and then you're relying on the predictive text system to predict the word, give you options, that kind of thing. Then you can rotate the keyboard, and you have a widescreen mode that's a full QWERTY. And so the deal here basically is that I have 2 issues with the keyboard. Take these for what you will. Again, I think you really, even maybe more than the iPhone, you really need to try this before you buy it and spend some time with it to see if you like it or not. The 2 things are the clicking and the actual size of the buttons and the way that it tells you which button you're hitting. The clicking, I've found that when I try to type fast on, it's meant to kind of give more feedback and make the phone feel more like a regular keyboard than just a touchscreen. And for me, typing on it, I find that the clicking's kind of nice, but after a while my thumbs get kind of tired, but I might just have to get used to it. But I don't know if the clicking really provides an advantage over a touchscreen. And honestly, better than the iPhone's touchscreen would be a touchscreen like on a Samsung or HTC phone or something that has vibrational feedback. So it's just a regular touchscreen, but it vibrates to let you know that you've made a selection. The iPhone's multi-touch, though, does let you kind of type in rapid fire, and it registers, more of your presses, which is kind of nice. But anyway, the thing with the Storm is that the clicking, when you start typing really, really quickly, you can run into a situation, and you can say that this is me and my technique, and I don't know how to use it, but I've heard this from other people as well, so I'm going to mention it, take it for what you will, that the screen can't actually raise and lower as quickly as you're typing. So in other words, I run into the situation sometimes, like if I'm trying to type the word so, S-O, I'll hit the S, and then before the screen has come back up, I'll hit the O. And so only the S gets registered because the screen hasn't actually clicked, released, and clicked again. Like that. So you get the idea, and again, some people have said, like, dude, you're an idiot. Come on, it's your fault. Learn how to use the phone. I'm just pointing it out. Again, it's something that I found frustrating. I know other people have found it frustrating. And then I know other people who no problem with it at all. The second thing is that the highlight around the letter that you're pressing is mostly underneath. Well, there's one of the notorious lags, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Definitely some firmware issues with this device. Yeah, you can see, clearly it's been well documented. A lot of bugs in the firmware that the Storm shipped with. We'll go back to message composition here to show you. The other thing that I was talking about is that the hover area, you can't actually see what letter you're typing when you click on it. And so, so again, you get used to it, and if you're a touch typist, where the keys are to a large extent anyway. But it is something just to kind of bear in mind that, with the iPhone, when you're composing a message and you're typing, the letters kind of jump out from under your thumb to let you know which letter you've typed. And it just makes it a little easier to go back and correct. Speaking of which, another thing where I give an advantage to the iPhone here, just something worth pointing out anyway, is when you're typing, and as you can see, I've kind of hit a point personally where I'm really, one of the reasons that I gave up the iPhone is that I'm longing for a full physical QWERTY keyboard. Between the iPhone and the BlackBerry Storm, my winner is the BlackBerry Bold, but with the iPhone, when you want to go back and correct something, you click and you get this magnifying glass, and it's very easy to scroll back and forth or even up and down and choose the letter you want to erase. It's a really nice system. It's eye candy, but it's also very handy. With the Bold, it's more difficult. And basically, if you want to correct something, you kind of just have to tap where you think it's going to go, and it's a little, it's just a little less precise. And I would hope that in a new firmware update they'll make a little bit easier of a system for. You can obviously delete with the delete key, but a little bit more easy, a little bit better rather of a system for going back. And if I wanted to change better to best, and I want to keep the BE and just click right in there, there's a little bit of guesswork and kind of multiple taps, and at least that's what I've found with the phone. And I think because this is appealing, it's kind of an interesting thing because it's appealing to casual users more than the hardcore users, so probably the touch keyboard and the speed limitation or the perceived speed limitation won't bother people as much because they'll be typing more slowly anyway. But then again, things like this with not having a hard time correcting your letters will really bother, I think, the novice user more than the power user, or maybe both people equally. But I actually find that the short type system is a little bit more easy for me to type on than the wide QWERTY. I think just because the buttons are bigger. So again, just telling you what I've observed, take it for what it's worth. Try before you buy is the caveat.